evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to our Wednesday night Bible study. And Curtis, if you are watching or tuning in, I'm not ignoring your call. I'm starting service. so, um, just I had texted him, asked him a question earlier. So, anyways, welcome to. Oh man, I didn't get it put up this time. I always say that I can do stuff and then I don't ever do it. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Cushing Indian Baptist Church, Wednesday night Bible study. My name is Arthur Atokny, Associate Pastor. Just want to welcome you this evening, this beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous fall. I don't know if you guys realize we're in fall now. Wait, or is it tomorrow? Somebody let me know. I think fall started. And if not, the weather sure is kind of taking a turn for the better. It's not as hot, though we don't get this for the rest of the time. Like, I like it when fall, or I like it when the seasons change. Like, here in Oklahoma, we might hit a seasonal date, spring, summer, whatever, but it doesn't actually, doesn't actually like hit when it's supposed to. It doesn't change, and it'd be awesome to be able to see that, right? It'd be awesome to be able to count on that day it's coming up and be able to say, hey, this is now we're going to be having cool weather. Now we're going to be able to see the colors change in the leaves. That is one of the coolest things about autumn, is that when the trees start shedding their leaves, before they go into hibernation for the winter, their leaves change all kinds of colors. And when you're in a forest, I happen to be traveling this past weekend and got a glimpse, not totally, color change and everything, but there was a couple spots in the mountains that I was able to pass by and see that there was a little glimpse of fall. And it was like, patches of trees had started turning their colors, and there was yellows, there was them oranges and browns, of course. But then those ones that add a little bit of life, I like to say, not the bright yellow. The bright yellow is pretty, but the ones that kind of like a little bit yellow green, that kind of don't turn all the way before they fall off. Those are cool, and there was a couple of those, and so I was away at a wedding, and so congratulations to Michelle and Michael Willard, my longtime friend. He had invited me to be a part of his wedding party last year when they were planning it. Right in the middle of the pandemic, they were saying, we're not going to get married this year, obviously, because we don't want to have to deal with all that. So fast forward a year, I almost forgot. He was kind enough to send out, all the wedding invitations and reminders and everything. And I was like, there's something I got to do this fall. There's something, that's actually pretty big. And I was thinking, work or church or different things and whatnot. Oh, man. So I had to go get fitted. Man, my size, pandemic's hitting me hard. Hitting me hard with the weight gain. But, was able to go up there. Where they were getting married at was in Grand Junction. If anybody's familiar with that, it's on the west side of the Rockies. I don't know if it's quite on the side of the Rockies. I'm sure there's a couple mountain chains. I don't know my geography too well right there. It's almost to Utah, though. I drove 12 and a half hours up to that area, and it was an intense drive, because going through the mountains is no joke. And it's interstate, and it's 2 lanes. It's a 4-lane highway. It's 2 lanes going each way, but the mountains, it's crazy. And in some areas you're lucky if you're going 45, 40 miles an hour, especially with traffic. It gets even crazier. And some of those areas, it was really busy coming back during church time. There were so many people on the road. It was crazy, because it was like, man, sometimes it was a 3-lane highway to let the trucks pass and everything. But man, they were like speeding and zooming around and everything. It was crazy. But made it safe, made it up there safe, made it back safe, and had a good ceremony. A good couple, and just glad to see them taking that next step, right? Being able to put their trust in God and being able to go forward as one person. In fact, I'm kind of jealous of Michael a little bit because apparently he has like a road trip planned for his honeymoon, and he got to go see AT&T Stadium. I got to see Texas Stadium. I'm a huge Cowboys fan. I know I don't play it, but I haven't been doing too well these past couple years, and so really excited for the season and everything. But man, he got to see AT&T Stadium before I did, and I'm kind of jealous. A little bit, just a little bit. I want to get down there and see that place and go attend a game. I know actually a lot of my relatives here in Pawnee have actually got to see it before I do too, because they went to the is it the Big 12? Not the Big 12. One of those games. They went down there and watched OU play, and they got to see it and everything too. And so, yep. One day, I see it all the time when I'm flying through there. In the years past, when the planes take off towards the west, you almost fly right over it, and so it's huge. It's huge and cool, and I bet a sight to see. So just letting you know what's been going on in my world. Man, I still haven't. Okay, here we go. So we as a church were at He Is One, I think, revival or outreach, the mission down there in the community outreach with the churches that we have partnered with I can't remember their names. There's a community one, then there's a Moore or Edmond or something like that. There was a couple churches that got together, and that's where we were at. And so I will have to add the live stream. I put it all on there. If you didn't notice, we weren't live. We were down there taking care of things and whatnot. And so I think I missed one area, but if you tuned in, we were still online. And good news that we look to be back in person this Sunday. In fact, if you've been noticing the news, things may be settling down, even with the kids in school, which is an awesome thing to see, because again, you should be getting your vaccines, you should be taking your precautions, and hopefully, man, I can see the turn. It's not quite in view, but we can see that little bend. Maybe we're rounding it. Maybe we're finally being able to get out beyond this, because it's tiring, it's taxing, having to deal with things. Again, where I was visiting, they had a lot of restrictions in place. When I was talking with the guests, the other wedding party, they had places they had to go, but they were concerned about having to be affected by the restrictions and different things that were going on. And so maybe we might be rounding that turn, but we will have services. We'll be in person. We'll still be live for those that choose to still view us online. I know that we had a lot of visitors or a lot of viewers that wanted to watch, and they weren't necessarily local. And so we thank you. And for those that have tuned in this evening, we thank you for supporting us and being able to help us spread the word of God. And so it was a good outreach. That's what I was asking Curtis and the others about was it was it well attended and everything, and everybody said yeah, it was a good deal. So mission accomplished. We did what we said we were set out to do, and so that's a good thing. I want to go ahead and look tonight into what we're going to be looking at for our study, and we're going to be in chapter. So we was already in these verses last week, okay? And we're just going to continue on because we were talking a little bit about fear. We were talking a little bit about how that might become an obstacle for us and how sometimes we get in the way, sometimes we make assumptions, and sometimes we just don't think that we have the skill um, when we're going through things, right? But there are also other things, right? On the flip side of that, where success is sometimes maybe an obstacle as well because it brings on new challenges. And moving through here, I mentioned a little bit about it, but we're going to read, what is it? Verses, where's it at? Yeah, 13. So we were in chapter 12 last week. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 13, and we're going to be where I was alluding to last week was Abram and Lot are going to go their own ways, right? And we talked a little bit about how, difficulties within doubting where God has provisioned us, where He's positioned us, where He's been able to provide for us and help us succeed, right? Well, this part right here is going to show us a little bit about how to handle success as well when it becomes not a problem, but maybe adds to our worries and complicates things when we're trying to work for the Lord, right? If we're successful in everything that He challenges us to do and gives us a task for, sometimes we have to grow. Sometimes we have to mature. And so, beginning in chapter 5, again, get your Bibles out. Genesis chapter 13, verse 5 says, "Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents. But the land was unable to support them as long as they stayed together, for they had so many possessions that they could not stay together. And there was quarreling between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land." So, if you remember, the few verses before, the chapter before, there was famine. There was things that were going on that were not only worrying, but changed Abram's past, right? Or it changed his path to do certain things. He had to put his trust in God to go and provide for him, right? He was going to go to another land, and he had to trust in God that he was going to survive. And because he did, right? He put his trust in God, went on the mission that he was supposed to go on. He was successful because God blessed him enough just to be able to survive, but also his family in so much that they grew, and they grew beyond what the area could support them. And word for word, that's what it says is but the land was able to support them. I wish I had the New King James or the King James version, but when you are on farms, your livestock, you're limited on how much livestock you can have per acre, per the land requirements to support an animal, just like pets, right? We have a couple cats here, and we have to buy a big old 20-pound bag of food every so often. Well, if we had more cats, they would obviously take more resources, right? We'd have to get more water, we'd have to get more food. Same way goes for farmers. When I was driving through, when I was in Grand Junction, they had a huge acreage for farmland. And I was like, this is the mountains. How in the world does this work? But they had, I don't know if there was a lake nearby, but they had these big irrigation ditches, right? And they would get to the crops, and they were growing all kinds of crops. They were growing like hay and alfalfa, but also corn, beans that I seen. I can't think of anything else. I seen a bunch of cornfields, but I was thinking, it was like, man, how is this able to do this out here in the middle of what seems to be a desert? It's right in a bowl, and there's mountains on all sides. I was trying to explain it to Stina when I was there. You could see mountains on all sides. Like you could look around and it's just like a big bowl. And I'm sure that there's hardly any moisture that gets there. But when I seen these irrigation ditches, I was like, oh, that's right. That's what you have to do. You have to manipulate the land, or you have to what do you call it? Manage your herds so they don't get too large. Driving through Kansas, I know that it's been said before. That's a peaceful drive. I like it and everything. So to some, it's boring and whatnot. But there was a couple dairy farms and a couple big old lands where there was a bunch of herds of cattle being raised and being tended to, right? But I didn't see anything that was like, hundreds upon hundreds. There's probably maybe 100 a head of cattle in one area for this huge grazing farm, right? And then in the ones where they, I guess, fed them right there at the deal, there was pens and all that type of stuff. You have to be able to manage with what you can get. Now, us in the modern times, we're blessed with technology to be able to haul like big trucks, big payloads of food. We don't necessarily have to, have the milk produced here in this area before it goes bad. We got refrigerated trucks and everything like that. But here, that's what we're talking about. So they were able to survive, but they couldn't get that. They were limited by not only their technology, but by their means. See, they were so successful that they had to face a new challenge on how to grow and expand and be able to manage this stuff. And they couldn't, because when you are successful, when you come upon a little bit of accomplishment, right? And there's, things to be had, materials, stuff like that. It mentions it in here, material possessions. Not everybody gets along. And it says quarreling, but there was probably, arguments, disagreements about whose is what and where it should be and all that type of stuff. Kind of like family, right? Family. And this is exactly family. How many brothers and sisters out there agree on where to put things if they had to share a room? Or maybe they didn't have to share rooms, but they had to share a bathroom. They had to share a car ride, the back seat, right? It doesn't tend to go well 100% of the time. Now they can get along, and that's one of the things I always brag about. Me and my brothers, we got along pretty well, but there was a few times we didn't. And I wouldn't call it quarreling. That's putting it lightly, right? But there was these problems. There was these things that came up, challenges to their new way of life that God had provided for them, that He put in their path. So they had to look towards something that would be able to resolve this. Where everybody's happy, right? And so we see here where Abram is going to exercise his skills. Again, remember what Abram did before, right? He doubted himself. Not only did he doubt that things would go well that shouldn't have gone well, right? He doubted his ability to be able to overcome those things. And so he's God has shown him that He has equipped him to be able to handle these things. So He's going to show us. So then Abram said to Lot, "Please let's not have quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, since we are relatives." So right there is the inkling of the discussion, right? Now I probably went a long ways, but to sum it up, they didn't want to fight. They didn't want to argue. They didn't want to be at odds with each other. And the reason was, right there at the end, they were related. They were family. Most of the time, 90% of the quarreling happens between family. There's some rugged statistics out there that show us that a lot of the homicide stuff, a lot of the domestic violence stuff, a lot of the hurtful things happen between people that know each other. And even more here, right here, what the Bible's showing us is families tend to squabble. Isn't the whole, verse 9, isn't the whole land before you? He's asking a question again. Separate from me. Separate from me. So he's establishing a decision. He's proposing a way out of this without having to go to battle, so to speak. See, there's always a godly way of resolving conflict, and that's what we see here. That's what we can look to Abraham, our father, to be able to get some wisdom, gain some wisdom, right? And so he's establishing. There's a good way of looking at this, right? You have to first acknowledge the problem, then you have to be willing to work on the problem, and then you have to be willing to abide by your agreement, right? Just real simple steps. You have to acknowledge that there's a problem there. That's what he's saying. He's saying, please, let's not have quarreling. He's already acknowledging there's fighting going on right here. There's conflict. So let's resolve it, because we don't need to be fighting, right? So propose a solution. So isn't the whole land before you? So he's showing him. He's letting him see what they're quarreling about, and let's look best how to decide to resolve it. Separate from me. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left. Now, the issue here isn't that they are trying to divide up the land. I would say for the betterment of themselves. He's proposing a decision that they resolve it in a way that pleases everyone. So I keep that in mind, because Abram's not looking to have the best land for himself. Lot may be, but it's his desires is going to get caught up in what is going to affect him later, right? So again, we have to base our thoughts and our decisions on what God has in store for us, right? And so he's trusting God right now. He's saying, you can choose. That's what he thinks is best in this situation, is to let Lot go ahead and choose. Lot looked out and saw the entire Jordan Valley as far as Zoar was well watered everywhere, like the Lord's garden and the land of Egypt. So what he's seen was resources to be able to take care of himself. Again, basing his decision maybe on comfort or quality, not necessarily on qualification, not necessarily on what God wanted for Lot. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose the entire Jordan Valley for himself. Then Lot journeyed eastward, and they separated from each other. So what we see here, and again, we know the story. We might touch on it later, so we're not going to give too much away, but you guys can read about it. And I'll summarize it. Is Lot chose his land based on his desires to be able to. What in the world's going on? Well, that doesn't look right. There. I don't know what's going on. Lot chose based on being able to please himself, being able to have the best material things, right? He's seen all this, and he based his decision on where he wanted to be, and comfort, in being able to maybe further his material possessions, or being able just to maintain, right? Whereas Abram we can read on. It says, Abram lived in the land of Canaan, but Lot lived in the cities and the valleys and set up his tent near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were evil, sinning greatly against the Lord. See, Abram based his decision on what was best for everyone, what was best for not only his family, but Lot's family as well. And the decision was to separate and go their own ways so that they didn't have to manage production or manage their households together, right? They were getting big enough that they could go off and do their own thing. But Abram, in his leadership and his skills and his ability, trusted God to be able to provide for his family. He didn't look at the land and say, okay, well, Lot, because that place is good, I'm going to go ahead and go over there and then leave you with the rest. He let Lot choose, right? And in that, he gave up that security, that financial well-being in return for peace of mind, that everything would go to God, that everything would go according to God's plan, and that he didn't have to worry about the things that maybe Lot was more concerned with, is how I'm going to be able to continue, how I'm going to be able to grow, how am I going to be able to do some of these things, right? He trusted in God to be able to provide. It's that relationship during conflict that we should be able to rely on and grow and ultimately reflect, because that's what God does for us. He gives us that peace of mind, that comfort in knowing that whatever we choose based on what he wants will be the good thing. If we choose based on what we want, it probably won't turn out the best for us. And that's not to say material stuff or anything like that. Spiritually, if we're worried about, taking care of certain things in our life instead of taking care of certain people in our life, right? The family squabbles, all that type of stuff. What is best for our family instead of what's best for what I want or what they want or anything like that. See, that's where God and the world clash. That's where they contrast. It's not always what we want. It's what God has in store for us. And Abram shows that right here. Shows a good leadership quality in that to resolve conflict, he looked out for what was best for everybody and made a decision to pursue God instead of pursuing maybe what they were used to, financial well-being, resources, material possessions, probably nice houses, right? In that area, they might have better stone than what the area that he was looking at, to be able to weather, the weather that was going on or whatever. But again, he asked and he trusted God to be able to guide his decision. And in doing so, he was a good mentor for us to be able to look at any kind of situation in conflict and be able to say, yes, there are things that I want, but what does God want to come out of this? What is he providing here that we have an opportunity to grow and to be able to reflect himself, God and Jesus? And that's where we can take, where we can gain that little bit of wisdom that Abram right here is showing us a good way how to deal with conflict. Good way of, showing that we are God's people, that we're his children, that we're mimicking what Jesus taught. Jesus taught this whole deal through each and every one of his miracles and his parables that he talked about. You see, it wasn't ever about what was surrounding. Getting off track, but Job too. Jesus and Job were great examples during each of their teaching moments. How they focused on God, and they didn't focus on the world. They didn't focus on people what they think about them. They focused on what God wanted. Jesus, time and time again, he said, "This is the Father's will. It's the Father's will. It's not my own. I wouldn't be doing this as a human, right? As humans, we wouldn't do some of the things that we were called to do unless God had his hand in it, unless God called us to do it." And so that's something that, again, I wanted to share with you this evening. Really good little read, little portion right here that you can gain a lot of wisdom. And you know what it is? You don't focus on yourself, especially during conflict. You don't focus on. There are a lot of people out there that when conflict arises, they want to win. They want to win. They think it's a competition, and they will do and stop. They will do anything and stop at nothing to make sure that they win that battle. Whereas others, they don't always focus on winning. In fact, a lot of times they focus on not getting involved. Sometimes you have to get involved. Sometimes God puts challenges right in your path to be able to grow and learn from, and most of all, to be able to learn to trust Him. And so that's something that I came across and was, blessed to be able to read and blessed to be able to share that with you this evening. And so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up right here. Again, we are live every Wednesday, 7 o'clock, as you can see right here. And we are also live, or not live, not Facebook Live or anything like that. Sometimes we are. Saturdays, we are on the radio, 1600 AM KUSH. And they are on an app as well, Tune In. You can download that app and then you can tune in every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. We're also live on all social media Sunday morning with Sunday school at 10 o'clock. And then Sunday, our main worship service starts at 11 with really good preaching. No matter who's up there. If you don't go to church, I invite you to watch our streams or even come and join us. We are located at 1034 East Walnut, just a few blocks north of the hospital there in Cushing, Oklahoma. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this. Which one? There it is. I don't know what happened to my other camera feed. I got two camera feeds here to make sure stuff like that doesn't happen. And so, until next time, God bless.